Welcome. We'll give everyone a moment to join and then we'll get started here shortly. All right, for those of you who are just joining us, we're giving everyone a moment to gather in, then we'll get started. But for now, please feel free to answer the poll that is about to appear on your screen. It should show up now. Seems like we got everyone everywhere in their vCISO journey. All right. I'll leave the poll open as you guys answer, but I think we're ready to go here. So thank you all for joining us today for our webinar. Today we'll discuss how vCISOs can optimize your cyber defense and why it may be a good idea for your organization to outsource security efforts. Today we'll be joined by our vCISO clients over at Mott Community College and Macomb Community College. We'll explain what a vCISO is and how one can solidify your security posture and security operations. So let me tell you a little bit about our host organizations. So first we have Macomb. Macomb Community College is a multi-campus community college in Macomb County, Michigan. The college is accredited by the Higher Learning Commission. Offerings include university transfer, early college, professional certification, workforce development, continuing education, and enrichment. Their mission is to transform the lives and communities through the power of education, enrichment, and economic development. If you would like to learn more, you could visit the link on this slide. Now we'll talk about Mott. So Mott Community College is a public community college in Flint, Michigan. The college offers a variety of associate degrees and pre-associate certificates, and it also has satellite campuses nearby. Their mission statement is to provide high quality, accessible, and affordable education opportunities and services that cultivate student success and individual development and improve the overall quality of life in a multicultural community. Now let's talk about RSI. RSI Security is a premier managed IT security and compliance advisory provider. We have professionals for all cybersecurity and compliance needs, from data privacy to PCI, healthcare data compliance, cyber defense, penetration testing, federal programs, and more. These are some of the services we specialize in as a full suite cybersecurity solution provider. We work with some of the world's leading companies, institutions, governments to ensure the safety of their information and their compliance with applicable regulations. Now I will introduce our panelists. All right. So first we have Cheryl. Cheryl Shelton has served in the role of Chief Technology Officer at Mott Community College since 2009. Cheryl was also a classroom and online instructor at Mott for 17 years in the Information Technology Department of the Technology Division. She has taught courses in general computing, computer programming, computer networking, and computer security. Cheryl has her bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Michigan Flint and her master's degree in MIS from Ferris State University. Next, we have Mike. Since joining Macomb Community College in 2005 as a CIO, Mike has provided leadership for college's academics, administrative, and business computing technologies with a keen focus on organizational efficiency and a common sense of application of technology. Prior to that, Mike has spent 26 years in engineering design technology and executive leadership positions with an international high-speed machining, welding, and manufacturing automation company. Mike holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Wayne State University in computer science and a master's degree from Kettering University in operations management. Next is Dave. Dave Samara is a senior technical project manager at RSI Security. And after a multi-decade career in global IT operations and his management roles up to the CIO VP level in military and defense industry, and that consistently included the responsibility for cybersecurity and leadership responsibilities of system design and installation, DevOps, and unique roles in threat and awareness hunting. Dave has shifted to the cybersecurity industry as a qualified certified information securities, system security professional, project management professional, cloud certified practitioner, and certified scrum manager. Lastly is John. John Shin is the founder and managing director at RSI Security and has over 18 years of experience in the technology and cybersecurity leadership, working with industries across the board. As a PCI qualified security assessor, certified information systems security professional, CISM, and project management professional, John works with businesses at virtually any size and scale to assess and improve cybersecurity strategy and posture. He is also the author of multiple research papers for the US Air Force Research Laboratory and others. Before I pass it off to Dave, I'll just go over a few FAQs. First, any questions you have throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Be sure to use the Q&A button to submit all of your questions throughout the presentation. Also, you'll receive a copy of the presentation, a CPE certificate, and a recording via email tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. I'll now pass it over to Dave to take away.
Thanks very much, Nico. That's a lot of credentials to read through. Maybe I should add a few, make it even longer. No, just joking. It's great to have your intro. Thank you, Cheryl, Michael, John. Great to have you here. Looking forward to this discussion today. And everyone who's attending, thank you very much for being here. Much appreciate your participation here. Looking forward to your questions as we move through the topic here. So the agenda today, we will overview what is a CISO, really a vCISO, and challenges also for the vCISO. You know, you hear CISO, you hear vCISO, the small v in front of it is V for virtual, someone who's part-time, someone who may or may not be on-prem in your actual offices. They might be remote. Certainly the last 2 to 3 years have pushed that remote environment on all of us at large. There's quite a few challenges though with having a vCISO, staffing for one, integrating, also retaining, and then there's some optimization pieces that we'll talk to as well. How you get the best value out of a vCISO, vulnerabilities that there are, and also we'll hear from Cheryl and from Michael as to how RSI vCISO services have supported them. This slide here, you know, picture's worth 1,000 words. That picture on the in the right bottom corner there, the palm on forehead, although that's underneath the title there of, you know, 1 in 6 CISOs or vCISOs now medicate or use alcohol, which is certainly a bit unfortunate. It can also be replaced by the business owner. What if that's the picture of the business owner? So as we think of that in 2 different ways, if we look on the left there, vCISO is a very, very challenging role, one of the hardest, not the hardest. There's lots of challenging jobs out there, but right now, when we've seen an exponential rise in cyber threats, in the cyber environment where now most businesses are cyber-based, your intellectual property is typically contained electronically. Your revenue streams are typically contained electronically. So we have this very critical role, but at the moment in the history of cybersecurity, it's a high availability role, but very low authority, very low budget. We often find tends to have low credibility come with it too. I think that'll change over a few years, but that's where we are right now. But it's a pretty important role because yes, business is about making money. Any sort of business organization is looking for revenue to be provided. Even a 501c3 needs some amount just to support their operations. And so that's all contained electronically. So something to consider along the way is if your intellectual property contained electronically was hacked and your revenue stream was hacked, then and you lost it or lost a significant amount of it, where would you be? Not everything we're going to talk about today is about the electronic realm. We're going to get into some other areas as well. And I recognize that our guests today are from the area of academia, where a professor and their mind, their brain, walking into the room and delivering to students is not something contained electronically, but so much of the operations of an organization such as that is contained electronically. The biggest business risk in 2022, according to Allianz Global, is cybersecurity. You can see that that's had a 4% growth. A cyber incident can cause a business interruption. Other things can cause a business interruption as well, some sort of natural disaster. But you can see that it is a significant business risk in 2022. And I suspect if we looked at data before that and data for the next couple of years as we move forward, we'll see that it is one of the top probably 3 or 5 business risk concerns. John, from your perspective as the managing director at RSI Security, I know you are out there talking with many, many clients. You're out there talking with your peers who are also in the cybersecurity corporate world. How do you see these statistics reflected in the conversations that you typically have in those circles?
Thank you, David, for the question. Great question. Let me just comment on sort of the disappointing reality out there that about 77% of spending on cybersecurity is really focused on defensive information security and compliance, rather than proactive measures and opportunities to support transformational growth for the organizations. And so the conversation is usually around what can we do at a minimum level to get to where we need to go, and then let's talk about the rest. During pandemic, there are 2 types of organizations, if you think about from an overly simplistic way. There were organizations that had pragmatic and adaptable IT security and IT infrastructure work in place, such as 2 guests that we have here today. And then there were other organizations who had to adopt IT security as a part of the new reality and get into more central piece of a risk strategy. Now, because of the conversations a lot of times around defensive information security, we don't really get into exciting part of IT security, which I believe should be part of the business initiatives that can transform and innovate business. So I think the conversation at this point is really around that. And but I think CISO and vCISO can really transform the organizations to the next level and co-create cyber resilience innovation for the next version of the company.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I agree. As we move in, that's a great segue to this next piece. CISO vCISO has an opportunity to transform a business, but look at this here. There's a lot of topics to cover, and it's not all technical. There's everything from an insider threat, which, yes, they might be using a keyboard, but how do you find that? That's a little bit out of the technical realm. How do you identify a potential insider threat, all the way to the very technical piece? But there's human factors, there's social engineering, there's even collaborating with third parties to make sure that they are technically safe, which that doesn't necessarily start with a technical conversation. And I think that this and into the next slide might be a great place to begin to talk with Cheryl and Michael about your experiences. Cheryl, I know that you've seen some great benefit, as we look at this, this is quite the menu of topics here. As we look at this, as a board takes a look at this grouping of topics, and I know it says security assessment at the top, and that's one way to group these and title these, but I think you've had some good successes with a vCISO engaging with the board, and tell us a little bit about how you've seen that develop.
Certainly. Thank you, David. We've had our CISO, our vCISO, his name is Mohan, come before our board regularly. He attends every monthly board meeting, and then once a quarter together, we do an IT update. And boards can be really particular about not wanting to spend the money, calling it insurance versus, as John said, being preventive versus reactive. And when they bring that outside perspective, they can really help your board see why prevention is really important and the benefits of spending the money up front to be safe versus spending the money after the fact to clean up a mess. He can speak in terms that they understand, and they view him as an authority because of his vast experience over the years and what he has done and how that is his sole focus. In my role, I have to focus on a lot of things, and Mike's going to be the same way. But when you have the CISO who that's their job is to stay on top of this, because as they mentioned, this stuff changes so fast and so much that to have one person dedicated to trying to stay on top of it is really beneficial. And our board sees that.
Thanks, Cheryl. And I know that when we had talked previously, you mentioned that one of the benefits wrapped into that was the ability to really drill down on a specific topic that the board might have a concern about. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Certainly. So like one of the things that we really wanted to do was really start focusing on training our internal staff, getting our staff knowledgeable, because, they're your number one line of defense, essentially, after all the electronic, flips and switches. So getting your staff really involved in understanding why that is so critical. And that led to, we included our board in that. They had to take the same training that all of us took, and, to raise their awareness of what we want, raised on awareness of the entire college. So just focusing on that one, we were never able to get mandatory cybersecurity training by every single employee, period, accomplished without Mohan's help.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Thank you. I'm glad you brought in that staff piece, because I think this next slide here will start to talk a little bit about we'll take that board perspective, that C-suite challenge and of security oversight, and start to break that down a little bit. Any organization is going to have gaps in security. Even organizations that are well secured are going to have some small gaps here and there. And the structure, who the CISO or the vCISO would report to can be challenging. That gets into a whole nother conversation about security versus compliance, which is for another day and another topic. There can be high resource costs to having an actual full-time CISO, and so a vCISO can certainly help provide some economic benefit there. But Michael, you had really, as we prepared for this, you had really focused quite a bit, and I like this part about how it impacts the staff, even a staff that might be well aligned and a long-term staff, and how the vCISO can have an impact there. So outside the boardroom, and as Cheryl segued to, across the entire organization.
How about if I unmute myself? Works better that
Gotcha.
way. You
Gotcha.
think after 3 years of doing this, we'd all know to unmute first before one speaks. Yeah, I mean, this has been a heck of a challenge for Macomb. I mean, I think it's important to remember that everyone, including the IT staff, almost always sees security as being an inconvenience. And people often choose that as the path of least resistance, right? So for me, it wasn't a matter of, beating the drum and trying to drive IT security through everybody's heads. I took a different approach. I spent a lot of time trying to get executive buy-in first. And through that executive buy-in and leveraging an outside resource such as a vCISO I was able to get a lot more traction, get a lot more attention, and get things done. I mean, IT staffs can be, they can be, what's the word I want to use? They can sometimes be a challenge because they're very smart people, right? But sometimes they're so consumed with the run of the organization that they really don't have the time to look and understand and comprehend the impact of those decisions they're making in terms of how they may configure systems, right? So the beautiful thing for Macomb is that having this outside virtual CISO, they have this independent, no skin in the game point of view that really helps us understand where our weaknesses are and how to better prioritize where we do spend our money, where we do spend our effort. And when I'm talking about spend our effort, it's to what kind of effort do I put into try to train and change internal staff, whether that be IT or whether that be the general rank and file, to improve the posture of IT security at Macomb.
You know, you bring up a good point, Michael, and I think both you and Cheryl might be able to answer this one in turn. You talked about the executive buy-in, and at the risk of taking up someone's question that might ask this, if you don't, how do you accomplish that executive buy-in? If you're not, you know, how do you not just force this on the organization? Like you talk about, you don't want to force on the organization at large. It doesn't tend to go well that way. But when you approach the executive, the board, how do you impress upon the board that there's this need rather than just say we've got to do this?
Well, I'll take that one for a second, and I think Cheryl will probably laugh or smile or chime in. Never squander an opportunity. So good or bad, no matter how you want to look at this, there's been 3 community colleges in Michigan in the last year or so that have each had some sort of security breach and or ransomware attack, okay? And when one of our sister colleges on the other side of the state was shut down for nearly a week from a ransomware attack, it was very easy when the president came in and said, how do you keep me off the front page? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, and that's part of how I was able to drive the importance, because again, never squander an opportunity. And because had it not been for that executive buy-in, I know for a fact I would not have the support across the institution today that I have for implementing the changes that we have. We just got finished implementing mandatory multi-factor authentication for students. David, 2 years ago, they would have hung me off the flagpole if I would have tried to sell that one. But I got complete executive support, and even down through the ranks, through the faculty ranks, through the administrative ranks, everybody understood the need for trying to protect the integrity of these student accounts. It went without a fight. And I'll be honest to God, I would not have been able to do that had it not been for executive buy-in and having a virtual CISO in the background pushing this, saying, these are the things that are most important to you to keep you off the front page.
Cheryl, how about you? How did you approach? Thank you, Michael. That was great. It's unfortunate that the incidents had to occur to gain the attention of the executives, but being human beings, we tend to respond well to crisis. Cheryl, how did this develop? How did you approach the board, the executive level, in your over there at Mott?
Very much the same way. You know, I'm just going to be honest and say we were one of those schools that had an incident, and you know, before it was never a priority. It was always, oh, that's too much money. You know, we have to work on enrollment. We have to work on this. You know, everything else was always a priority. So a good scare, as Mike said, you know, don't waste that crisis. And if you can leverage someone else's crisis, even the better, because that way you don't have to go through all the pain. But I will say it pretty much really highlighted that the staff that we have are not security experts. And that's when we really got the support of our board to start really focusing on getting that expertise. And then once they really saw, it was kind of funny because once we got it, how much they didn't know was really exposed, how much as an institution we didn't know. But we still had a couple of naysayers, but I will say that for the most part, everyone says, you know, oh, thank goodness, because some of these other schools had it worse than we did, and we don't want to be in any worse shape than we already are. And the pandemic really showed us that, the world had changed and that we needed to step up with it. And our board and our executive team noticed that right away as well. So it wasn't a hard sell for me. It was more finding the right organization that made the difference, that would be a fit for us to help us sort of step up our game and get up to speed where we needed to be as a college, working in the world of the internet.
Okay,
If I may, I'd like to
Yeah.
add a comment too. I mean, prior to engaging a virtual CISO, I used a different organization to provide a baseline audit against the CIS controls. And I did this, this was, I didn't know what I didn't know either. I did this in a way to basically understand where I might stand in terms of an industry standard and against my peers. And I'm going to be completely transparent. I always felt that we were better than most. And that's not to be egotistical, but we always had enough money to buy the right stuff, right? So we go through this baseline CIS controls audit. Oh my God, we were terrible. I mean, I don't think we scored a 1 out of 5 on anything. That right there, when I put that in front of the executive cabinet and in front of the board, they looked at that. First of all, they looked at me and they said, why are you running an organization like this? And I said, it's not that. This just goes to show you that as much as you've got smart people and you've got a good team and you've got money behind you, it does not translate into a great, secure organization from an IT security standpoint. So if anybody wants to take away from this webinar, do that baseline assessment and you will find that giving you the ammunition and the bias you need to basically take the rest of your initiatives forward.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Cheryl. John, you like Cheryl and Michael are at the executive level, and as you're talking with executives across a lot of different companies, both clients, non-clients, and in other networking forums, do you find that it takes a crisis, whether at the organization or very near to the organization, in order for the organization to act, or are there organizations out there that are more and more realizing that this is here and now? Cybersecurity is something that everyone needs to accomplish. And that they are voluntarily moving into a cybersecurity posture. What do you see from your vantage point, John?
Yeah, thank you, David. Good question and great comments from Michael and Cheryl. I think that having a board level support is absolutely critical. And this is something that nobody really wants to do. Nobody wants to take up their shoes at the airport, but we do it because we're told to do so after just so much crisis. And so top-down approach is very important, but I think the approach that Michael and Cheryl took is very, very telling, that board needs to see that in the number. There needs to be some sort of measurement, especially the in comparison. Because at board level right now, the question is not, hey, are we secure? It's no more, that question doesn't come up anymore. The question is, how resilient are we when we get hit? And so the conversation usually goes like, we cannot be perfectly secure. But with the right approach, with the right program, we can help the organizations just right amount of a negligence, not gross negligence, but right amount, which meaning that we have to focus on priorities and really get the buy-ins from the organizations. And so there's a book called How to Measure Anything in Cybersecurity Risk. And that's one thing that I recommend to various executives, because having that numbers and measurement and compare them with the other peers in the industry is a great way to get the buy-ins, but also see the trend. See the trend where the company is, organization is from 2 years ago and where we are. It's another way to convince the board that this is very important. As you know, SEC proposed amended rule back in March this year to now require publicly traded companies to have CISO to be a part of the board. They need to have a board representation of CISO, because getting the buy-ins is very difficult, because somebody needs to be present in the board level to do that, to really have a huge impact. And SEC's proposed amendment is actually in the works right now.
Those were great responses from all three of you, because I think it really altogether highlights what we've got on the next slide here, that vCISOs or CISOs, even if you have a CISO already in place, they bring a business security focus. It's much more than just compliance. It's also much more than just technical. It's because businesses operate in an electronic realm today. There's very few, probably extremely few businesses, there probably are some, that don't use some form of electronic communication or some form of electronic storage of some sort of intellectual property or revenue. So with all of the electronic environment that is in place, you need someone who has technical expertise, but someone who can look at the business from a risk perspective, not just the technical, but business processes. So you can see here, there's a lot of unknowns. And vCISOs are typically ought to be able to bring an ability to look at business risk, business security at large, because there's a threat out there and you need to posture to mitigate. Notice I did not use the word prevent, but mitigate risk. You're not going to be able to prevent all risks, but you can certainly get a lot stronger and a lot more resilient against them. There's pain points out there. I think one of the pieces, we talked a lot about technology pieces here and multi-factor authentication and et cetera, but and people getting, organizations getting hacked electronically, certainly that's a technical piece, but there really is a balance between people, process, and technology. You have to understand the business and what processes the business has going on to generate revenue, how the people are engaged in that, and then, if I may, then choose the technology that appropriately protects all of that. And every business and every industry is going to be different. And so a solution path, a vCISO can help generate that to address the business risk at large. Yes, there's going to be some technology solutions. Sometimes I know in the past I've been in positions where I did process alignment in the IT realm, and the answer was not always an IT tool. It might have been saying, did you realize that you group of people and you group of people are meeting about the same thing every week and you don't even know it? And consolidate the two, save a lot of time, you get some revenue back. Okay, here's our t-shirt giveaway. Let's get to a little bit of fun piece here. Before we jump into any questions that people might be submitting, might be currently typing away at right now, we do have t-shirts that we're happy to give away. We've got a QR code there, and if you don't catch that here, this will be recorded and made available here in the future. Okay, so we do have some questions coming in here. Got a couple of them, but before we get to those, any follow-ups from Cheryl, from Michael, from John about the topic thus far? Okay, great. Well, let's jump into these questions. Let's see. The first one, how do you choose a vCISO that has a diversity of experience, broad, but also the focused experience that the specific client company needs? John, you certainly are in a position where you're dealing out vCISO experience to those that are in need. From your perspective, then I'll certainly get to Cheryl and Michael. How do you see companies choose a vCISO that has a breadth of experience, not someone who's just all technical all the time, but someone who can move across the people, process, and technology topic areas?
I think the most important thing is to understand the organization and the industry that closely match with the experience. Because one of the key benefits of vCISO or CISO as well is to be able to leverage their experience, which will allow the organizations to be more agile and more mobile in making decisions. And also choosing leading edge security that fits the organizations. That decision can be made a lot quicker with somebody with the experience in the industry, yet can focus on that specific vendor or specific product that's proven to be very effective for organizations. And also, I would say that, as Michael and Cheryl mentioned, the human-centered transformation is a key. It's at the end, it's hearts and minds of people who are going to be part of that change or transformation. So therefore, for CISO or vCISO to be a bridge between IT and business and people to mitigate, the risk and strengthen sort of a response, is to really understand the culture and the culture of organizations, because some culture will take more assertive, authoritative type of CISOs with a certain management style that align with that. Some organizations will work great with the consensus building, accommodating, people-focused type of CISO as well. So my simple response to this is just like, marriage or any type of relationship, because at the end, this is all about relationship. You just have to find the closest match.
That's great. Thank you for that perspective on it. I want to take this question and John, take your response, and I want to look at that a little closer and also turn it around a little bit. So Cheryl, as you were approaching the vCISO need, did you have any ideas about what type of vCISO you might need, and did that drive you to reach out one way or the other? Your journey is currently with RSI, but you may have had other steps along the way. Can you tell us a little bit about the search for a CISO or vCISO and what shaped your perception of what you might need?
Well, we started out getting a SOC service in place. And so once we had that in place, that sort of presented a whole new set of issues that we wanted to address with the CISO. So it really, again, not knowing what we didn't know, once we had the SOC in place, all these things started happening and we're like, well, we have gaps here. So now what do we do? So we ended up interviewing 3 different companies after we put our RFP out. And it's kind of like John said, it's almost like a dating app, so to speak. You're seeing if they, you kind of present the issues that we notice that we have. You see what kind of questions they ask you and how they respond to the questions they ask you of your organization to see, are they poking in the right places? Are they asking questions that are thought-provoking to you? So you go, oh yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. That kind of gives you a feel for their skill set, their comprehension. And of course, in higher ed, where Mike and I both work, we are kind of snotty that way, in that we, do you have any higher ed experience? But we didn't want someone who had exclusive higher ed experience, because we know how we are. And we need someone who's not just like us to help us sort of bridge the gap between what is required and needed and expected in higher ed and what the business world is doing, and somehow bring those together to meet in the middle. So that's kind of how we ended up with our evolution. And, when we met with RSI, they were the best fit for us. And that's how we, ended up in this place today.
Cheryl, I think you highlighted a really good point there. It takes a lot of courage to find someone in this sort of situation that is not like you, not like the norm, not like everyone that you're currently working with. It's very easy to do that. It's comfortable, but finding someone that may be, different, if you will, from what you're used to, actually can bring a lot of great additional talent and perspective to the organization that I think you indicated earlier can greatly support and help the organization and accelerate it forward.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Different perspective.
Thank you. Michael, I know you've got a staff with a very strong representation and a very pretty solid, congealed staff there. And so when you were looking for vCISO, did that play into the type of individual you were looking for? Did you want someone that could relate well with the particular staff you have, or were there other drivers?
Well, our process was very similar to what Cheryl did. We put a public RFP in the street, ended up with there were 12, 15 responses from different firms that had different levels of expertise, different repertoire of what they were good at, right? And we immediately did what higher ed people always do. Okay, I want to find 3 people that have dealt with higher ed because we're special. And as I started interviewing the finalists, I realized that, to what John said, this was more than just needing somebody to come in and help me understand what I should and shouldn't be doing and how to move my institution forward. It was, how do I find a relationship with a firm long-term that resonates well with my staff and can earn the respect of my staff. I kind of alluded to this in the beginning. I mean, I got a very smart staff, but we are lean, we're community college, we're so focused on the run and so focused on keeping the lights on, and we've done things the same way for so long that becomes your pseudo Bible that you follow, right? And there may be missteps in there from a security standpoint. In other words, you probably could have done things differently. So I had to find, and I knew I had this once I went through that baseline CIS controls audit last year. I knew I had major issues across all 20 controls. And I knew that it was going to affect every one of my staff. And I knew that I had to find somebody or a firm that could resonate with them, earn their respect, not be the dictator come in and say, thou shalt, but really listen to what our issues are, why we've done things the way we have, because that was key in my organization, and be able to apply IT security best practices around those things we've already done in an effort to gently move us back in the right direction. So, make a long story short, out of all 12 or 15 bid respondents, we actually ended up interviewing all 15. I have never done that with an RFP ever.
Wow, that's a lot of interviews.
Because I found that there was such diversity between what they were good at, the personalities of the people I'd be working with, the personalities of the team, and their competencies, on top of the repertoire of services they were going to provide, that we had to. And I humbly suggest to anybody going through this, you can't just pick 2 and talk to them. You really got to put down, you got to get some bids in, you've got to get some proposals, you've got to vet these things in writing, and then you got to start interviewing, because what you see in writing isn't always what you're going to get.
That's a lot of interviews. Wow, 15.
And I came out on top. So how about that? Good job.
You both bring up really good points. We're all creatures of comfort, and it's very easy to, we have routines, and it's easy and comfortable to stay in those routines. But we have to also realize, this is challenging for humans to deal with, that change is constant, which is an irony in itself, that there's constant change, which makes us all uncomfortable. But having a change, having a little bit different perspective to help people change can certainly be valuable there. There's one other question that we have here. Let me move to that. Why is there so much, I think this is a good one. Why is there so much emphasis in the cyber community about the hundreds of software tools and services that are available? How does a vCISO help navigate that landscape? And Cheryl and Michael, I can imagine that you probably constantly every day have vendors send you emails saying you should buy this product for your college, for your academic environment, and there's all sorts of things that could help. How do you wade through that, and have you engaged the vCISO in that particular area to help you sort through what should be paid attention to and what should not be?
So I can go first if you want. So, sure. And I kind of alluded to this in the beginning. Macomb was probably the poster child for having top of the line firewalls, top of the line licensing for email security gateways. We have a Microsoft A5 license. So we've spent millions of dollars on security, right?
Impressive.
By the sheer virtue of, I got all these tools, I should be safe, right? what did I just say I did last year? Ran a CIS controls audit and found out not so much, right?
Right.
So it's not about how much you put in. It's not about all the tools. It's making sure you put the right tools in with the right configuration settings, and you haven't just band-aided and given yourself this false sense of security that I bought tools, I'm safe, because I can guarantee you that is not the case.
Cheryl, thank you. That's
Outsourcing.
illuminating to know, to see that, because you're right. You can have all kinds of great things, but it's probably, Cheryl, it's probably how you bring it all together. What's your experience here? You're probably inundated every day with vendors sending you emails. Oh, you should buy this technology piece. I mean, you're a CTO, so.
Yeah, exactly what Michael said. You get all these things, and I will say Mike's at a bigger school than I am, so he's sort of in the next tier than we are, so he gets a lot more money than I do, and that's okay. But as you can see, money doesn't always make it all better. But we so we didn't have a bunch of stuff, but we started out with I'm not going to name products here, but we started out with what we consider to be a next level ransomware ready antivirus protection system, and it failed us. And so we quickly switched to a better product and implemented that, and another subset of tools. And that's where we ended up getting the SOC service, because we couldn't manage that on our own. We're a staff of about 23 people, and with not a lot of expertise in this. And when alerts and things come up, we didn't know what they meant or how to research them, or we got so many that we couldn't do it fast enough. So that's where we sort of partnered in with the CISO to say, we're getting all of this. What do we do with it? What's the best way to manage all of this, these log files and things, and, alerts and things that are coming in? What's the best way to do that? So that was really what we leveraged first, was trying to figure out how to maintain that, because, you're trying to be reactive, you're trying to do your regular day job, you're trying to interpret these things, and, the bad guys are busy people. They keep you, full of alerts all the time. And so that was like our first foray into, how to bring these things together, because and now it's more or less, we haven't really bought anything new, I would say, recently. We just are, figuring out how to configure what we already have, because what we have is honestly probably pretty good. It's just, you got to make sure it's configured the right way, and you have all the holes closed, and some of the certain things optimized the way you need them to be for your business to run. And that was a big deal for us. And that's what's really been very beneficial so far.
Right. And it's important that configuration guidance come from somebody from the outside, because your own staff, and I've said this before, while they're smart, they know what they know, right? And they set it up the way they believe it needs to be set up, but that may not necessarily have been the right way, right? And it's not to say that they're not smart enough to do this, but they need somebody on the outside saying, yeah, but by doing those three things, you left the back door open, because that's what we found out, right? $1 million firewall, for God's sakes. And here we found out somebody got frustrated, wrote some rules at the bottom, but at the end of the day, wasn't any rules, letting everything through. So these are the kinds of things that it's not the tools. It's really having somebody on the outside looking in, helping you really understand how to configure all these tools together to form a net of protection as best that you can, because you're right, you can't prevent anything. But without that oversight, and that's where the vCISO for us came in, that has provided us so much ammunition in terms of being able to change things and change the way we've deployed products in a way that I never would have been able to do if I wouldn't have had the vCISO, because it would have been done the way that the initial person put it in.
I think those are great points. And I think what you both speak to is having that, as you've said before, both of you, an independent outside individual to come in and begin to understand the processes. They don't have to be on the inside for years and years and get lost in the processes, but they have to see them from the outside, understand how they fit together. And that will take a little bit of time to do, a few weeks, maybe, a couple, 3, 4 months to fully understand that. And then based upon those processes, then shape the technology environment to best support those business processes, whether it's a smaller or a larger organization, depending upon the budget, what resources might be available. Thank you both. There's one more question. Go ahead.
If I may add, want to address the first part of the question. Why is there so much emphasis in the cybersecurity community about the tools? I think that's one of the questions I want to address. Richard Fuller, I think he's an industrialist back in 70s. He had a famous quote that if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them. Instead, giving them a tool, the use of which will lead to new thinking. So tools are important. I think we use tools everywhere. I mean, there's an app for this. So there's an app. I mean, there's an app for parenting, for busy parenting as well, to what to say and what kind of a attitude they have. I actually downloaded that too to check it out. So, but I don't think it's the tools problem per se, as Michael said. It's the belief that tool will transform is I think where the flaw is. Because we walk into so many organizations that have well-budgeted, well-funded, and so many tools that are there, which is great. But then actually following through configuration and sustaining the configuration is where the real the difference is going to be made. So I think tools alone is not going to make the change. It's the process and people, to echo that comment from Michael and Cheryl.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, John. In fact, what you're all speaking to really begins to shape the answer to this last question. This will be the last question that we have time to take today. What are the 3 to 4 key elements that comprise a successful vCISO relationship to their client company? We've only got about maybe 5-ish minutes here, somewhat of a lightning round. Michael, 3 to 4 key elements that comprise a successful vCISO relationship to their client company.
Okay, lightning round. So quick answers. 1, the ability for the vCISO, whoever that person is for the organization, to establish respect from the client organization themselves. I think having that vCISO has to have the ability to understand the complete operational picture of everything that institution does or company does, right? Understand and measure and detect all the vulnerabilities that might exist, whether it's whatever that might be, and be able to help prioritize all of those vulnerabilities so that the task isn't this large, overwhelming fix everything. The task is this: fix these 10 things and you're going to be a hell of a lot better off than you were a year ago.
Right.
There's 2. I'll let Cheryl do the other 2.
I would say they have to have the ability to present to your president and to your board in terms that they can understand. That's a big part of my job, is to, translate the ones and zeros to something that people can comprehend at the higher level. And they have to be able to do that as well. So when they're talking to the board about, we need to do this, we need to implement that, we need policy on that, they need to be able to communicate that in a way that can be received and understood. And I also agree, I couldn't second Michael's prioritizing what you need to do at your organization. There are hundreds of things we need to do, hundreds. And, picking the ones that are either easy to do or the ones that have the biggest impact. Sometimes it's nice to just do low-hanging fruit, which is, short wins. But sometimes you really got to focus on the ones that have the biggest impact and are the most preventative, I guess, for any kind of incident in the future.
Thank you both. Those are great points. So John, in there, I heard trust, building trust. I heard ability to prioritize, well, actually to break things down first from a larger set, prioritize, but then be able to translate succinctly to the executive level. So as you consider those 3 to 4-ish points, John, what are your perspectives on some of the 2, 3, 4 elements that make a vCISO relationship to their client the most successful?
Interesting this question is asked. I actually just had a meeting with pretty large organizations, and they're looking for vCISO service. And I asked the CIO, and he said, what's the 3 most important qualities? He said, mobile, agile, and hostile. And because they are actually literally going through some difficult time. So there's time and place for that kind of characteristics to be more of a wartime leader versus peacetime. But I think being able to establish vulnerability-based trust in the organizations, where people can comfortably report problems that they have and let the bubble up to the highest level, is where the solutions to the problems really begin to address these problems. So as Michael mentioned, that somebody can really be the human-centered transformation is a key. Somebody who understands the strategy and business operations and technology, of course. But I think for me, the most important thing is building trust.
Yes, agreed. And that trust is going to be really important because there is a threat out there, and it does not discriminate as to who the target is. There's an intent, whether it be monetary, whether it be destroying some sort of public, relations or public persona for a company. There is a threat out there, and it has the potential to come for everybody. So it's wise to take steps to put procedures, precautions in place to reduce risk. Yes. Thank you all. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, John, for being here. I think we've got just about 2 minutes left. I don't see any more questions right now. It's been great to have this conversation with you. Great to have this moment here. And I hope that our audience feels greatly supported and educated by this. And it gives them some things to consider as they move forward with their own organizations, their own operations, and protect and look to preserve their revenue streams, their intellectual property. Nico, I think might be back over to you to close us out.
I will take it away from here. Thank you, Dave. Thank you so much to the audience for those questions. Those were amazing. Thank you so much to our clients over at Mott and McComb for joining us today. And Cheryl, I know you were feeling under the weather, so thank you for sticking it out with us. We really appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Cheryl.
And then thank you to Dave and John and everyone who joined us today in the audience. We'll be in touch via email tomorrow with the recording of the presentation slides, and your certificate. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks,
Have
everybody.
a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.